With Hashem's loving grace, this is Amunah Beams with your host, Laser Brody. Today's podcast is entitled Human or Horse. King Solomon in Ecclesiastes tells us that man is no better than an animal. Rashi explains that both end up dying and both have bodies which eventually decompose in the soul. Is that all we are? Disposable, recycled sacks of fertilizer? It sounds like pretty stiff language that both King Solomon and Rashi are using. But before we get upset, let's take a closer look. King Solomon and Rashi are referring to a flesh and blood body. In that respect, we are truly just another mammal. But the Midrash tells us that the mammal is only half of us, the material half. We have another side that's known as the neshama, the soul. That's the spiritual half. Well, the more our lives focus on the body, the more we resemble an animal. But the more our lives focus on the neshama, the more we resemble an archangel. Don't get me wrong, I love animals. I used to be a farmer and I had plenty of them, including a gorgeous golden retriever named Wendy, and a donkey named Jimmy, and a quarter horse named Golan. They were great workers, a lot of fun, and they did what they needed to survive. What's more, animals don't harm anybody that doesn't harm or threaten them. And you know what? They're loyal too. Many types of them serve as means of labor, transportation, security, food, and recreation. Dogs especially. They fulfill important functions such as aiding blind people, serving in the police and the army, and participating in rescue missions. But keep in mind that a human who simply eats, drinks, and procreates, despite the fact that he or she has a productive job and utilizes leisure time for sports and other positive recreational activities, is still no better than a horse, because horses do all that. And they do productive tasks on farms and cattle ranches, and they serve as source of recreation, enjoyment to their owners. So then how is a person superior to a horse? Well, if a person is void of spiritual ambition, the thirst for truth and yearning for self-realization, you're really no better than a horse. A horse, like a human, has a basic animal soul. It's called nefesh. The divine spirit and soul is called neshama. And that's what elevates a human above a mammal. And that is the sole point of human superiority over the animal. When humans utilize their divine spirit and their soul to rise above their base inclinations and to seek the Almighty and to behave in a godly fashion, they begin to fulfill their real purpose in life. But when people misuse or neglect their divine spirit and soul to treat others with cruelty, then they're way inferior to animals. An unblemished soul is one that refrains from transgressing and does God's will on a daily basis. Well, that kind of soul possesses a divine aura, which is reflected in the eyes and in the forehead, and it casts fear on all of creation, even on man-eating animals. Where do we see this? God blessed Noah after the flood, and he said, I have instilled the fear of the animals on the land and the birds in the sky, and the creatures on the earth and the fish in the sea. In other words, all the animals, they have awe. They look at a human with an awe. But when people sin, they do nothing to develop their spiritual self, then their soul gets tarnished and the animals no longer fear them. All the other creatures, in fact, they disdain any human that lacks a divine aura. Well, the divine soul is that tiny part of God within us. It's the spiritual platform that elevates a human above the level of a mammal. Now, if a soul is misused or uncultivated, then the human loses his spiritual advantage over the animal. In that case, not only is he no better than a horse, he's really worse than a horse. Imagine that a custodian of a hospital enters the operating room and takes one of the brain surgeon's fine, sterile scalpels for peeling an apple. Well, if caught in the act, such a custodian would surely lose his job. Using an expensive precision instrument for such a mundane task, it's not only a terrible waste, it's a severe degradation. By the same token, reducing the soul from its lofty spiritual level to the grade of a mere battery that triggers basic emotions and bodily functions, that's a bitter insult. The degraded soul cries out bitterly to Hashem, says, Hashem, I can't live inside a human animal. In turn, that person with the abused soul experiences some sort of abuse, derision, insult, embarrassment. But it's just like it just derides and insults the soul, it's going to get it from other people. So as far as Geula and Mashiach go, we're coming right down to the wire. So it's time we took stock in ourselves and began pursuing our true destiny. Don't ever forget, anyone with a soul seeking to strengthen Emunah and to get close to Hashem is not just a piece of meat. So don't let society tell you that the important things in life are the curves in your figure, your six-pack abs. Health, yeah, it's important, but we need a healthy body to house a healthy soul. But don't forget also, it's Torah, prayer, tshuva, and a personal relationship with Hashem that keep the soul healthy and differentiate between a human and a horse. So God bless for the best of spiritual and physical health always, and we together see Mashiach soon in our days. B'li Amen.